Hello everyone, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. We are continuing this, going into 2 color combinations now. This is also a Redux series, so I'm going through all the combinations, all the different colors, giving you my picks for the top 10 in each. So this video will be the Azorius top 10. And as we go into 2 and 3 color, you're going to notice there are not as many cards to choose from. There's still plenty though for a top 10, so don't worry about that. Number 10 is Time Wipe. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this isn't my favorite board wipe, but I think it can be useful in Commander. It's just a generic destroy all creatures board wipe for 5 mana, which isn't very good, but you do add the ability to bounce a creature back to your hand, so this could be the best creature that you have on the field. You may be able to replay your commander if you don't want to repay that commander tax, or if you just want to get a good cast trigger. That's something people don't always point out, is that there are a lot of good cast triggers on things like Eldrazi, so if you're able to bounce an Eldrazi back to your hand, you'll be able to get that cast trigger all over again, so it could sometimes be more beneficial than just flickering something, getting the ETB, and of course you are just combining 2 things for 5 mana. Number 9, we have Cloud Blazer. Now, this is an Azorius Muldrifter, and Muldrifter's a good card, but it's nothing I would say is spectacular in blue. Cloud Blazer is an above average ETB creature because you're not only drawing those 2 cards, but you're gaining 2 life. And the kind of ETBs that you can abuse are the ones like Muldrifters. Not so much about Muldrifter being good as it is just ETBs in general, ETB abuse being good, blink strategies being powerful, and in blue and white you have nothing but blink strategies, so Cloud Blazer is usually one of the best creatures that you can abuse, because late game if you're running low on life, not only are you going to be drawing 2 cards, but you're gaining 2 life each time it enters the battlefield, and pretty much anything with Deadeye Navigator can be pretty busted, so I think it's right where it needs to be. Number 8 is Grand Arbiter Augustine IV, which is weird because I never heard people say he's Grand Arbiter Augustine IV. It's always just Grand Arbiter Augustine. I don't know if people never felt comfortable saying it, but I think he's the 4th, right? But Grand Arbiter is a fun commander if you don't want to have fun at all and just want to make everybody miserable, which is why he's only number 8. He is pretty powerful, but it's not something you play if you just want to have a good commander game. If you want to play more of a competitive game with competitive decks, you have a Stacks commander here because you just make everything more expensive for your opponents and you make everything for yourself cheaper. If you have ways of cloning him and getting even more Grand Arbiters, if you have something like Helm of the Host, your opponents are probably not coming back. And it just makes what is usually the more efficient spells in the game, like Soul Ring, pretty much not worth it anymore. So number 7, we have Ifara, God of the Polis. Very underrated god, and something that is really beneficial is just consistent card draw. And I think what we have here is a way to get card draw consistently without it being too threatening. I don't think anybody's ever been threatened by Ifara, but she is a lot more powerful than people give her credit for being. There are a ton of strategies that can abuse having creatures enter the battlefield at whatever time you need them to, and this also triggers every single turn. So you'll be able to draw on the next turn's upkeep, and that could be on your opponent's turns, it can be on your turn. Phyrexian Arena is a good card because it gives you an extra card in black at the cost of 1 life at the beginning of your upkeep. So if you can imagine, I know this is blue, I know this is the color for card draw, but you have something even more powerful, you have something even more consistent, and it's more likely to happen, not just on your turn, but your opponent's turns. Pretty crazy, can get out of hand quite often. And then number 6, we have Brago, King Eternal. Probably my pick for the best Azorius colored commander, just because you can abuse ETBs of anything, or you can just abuse mana rocks, have them enter the battlefield untapped, which kind of acts as a reset. It's no secret that blue and white is the best combination for blink. You might have blue, white, and green, you might have blue, white, black that can blink, but blue and white just makes it more consistent. You have nothing but good ETBs. And with Brago as commander, it all seems to fit together perfectly. You get to abuse ETBs of enchantments, you get to reset planeswalkers too. The only bad thing about him is that he is susceptible to removal. You do have to deal damage in order to get that trigger. But other than that, I mean, a pretty outstanding commander option. And then number 5, we have Linvala, Shield of Seagate. Now this is a very simple card, but believe me when I say what it does is outstanding. She's pretty much like another Selfless Spirit. You can choose Hexproof or Indestructible this time though. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn if you sacrifice her. This is incredibly abusable in white, where you also have Sun Titan. You have easy ways of getting back cheap creatures. She's only 3 mana. So you're able to pretty much protect all of your creatures, whether they would be targeted or destroyed. Very common ways of removing creatures, you can pretty much just protect all of them. I tend to side with versatile cards, and I think Linvala is pretty underrated in that aspect. You could throw her into graveyard decks or blink decks that have ways of returning creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield with like Karmic Guide or again Sun Titan. In all of the ways that Selfless Spirit was an annoying card to have to deal with, Linvala is going to be even more annoying even though you do have to play blue-white to play her. I just think that combination, being able to do either if you really need to, is what separates her from some of the cards on this list. Number 4 is Soul Herder. Now this is, as a creature, I think probably the best blue-white creature right now in Commander. It fits into so many decks for so many reasons. I think every deck in blue-white can take advantage of ETBs, so that's a given. But you have a way of blinking on such a cheap creature. It's not a flexible ability, you do have to wait for your end step, but it's only 3 mana, which makes it pretty efficient, and it gets bigger. So you can synergize with +1/+1 counters and just good stuff ETBs. It's super affordable, it fits into so many decks, which is why if you're playing blue-white, you're probably going to see it at some point. It just puts in so much work if it's left alone. And then number 3, we have Render Silent. Render Silent is what you get if you combine the card Silence and the card Counterspell. And even if you look at the mana cost, that's pretty freaky. You get to counter a spell, and that opponent can't play spells that turn. So it's pretty much just I don't like what you're doing, so please just stop. That's the card, essentially. It's not quite what I think a lot of new players misread it as. It's not split second. It's not going to stop your opponents from simply counterspelling it. But if it does resolve, you do pretty much shut down your opponent for a turn. And it's still 3 mana, which is kind of in that range for Commander where you're like, alright, I'll play this counterspell. But anything more than 3 mana is just way too much. For what it does, I think it's well worth all 3 of that mana. And then number 2, we have Supreme Verdict. Now this card is insane. This card can't be countered. There are very few things that can actually stop it, and it has to be some kind of bounce back to your hand thing like Venser, or else it pretty much just can't be stopped. So it can't be countered and you destroy all creatures, all of that for just 4 mana, which unlike with Time Wipe, it's pretty much in that same category as Damnation, Wrath of God, 4 mana board wipes. It's blue and white, so it's going to need some kind of way of separating from the others. You have that because it can't be countered. So overall, just a pretty powerful spell. Alright, before we go on to number 1, we have some honorable mentions here. I'm a big fan of Detention Sphere. If you like Oblivion Ring, you can get rid of tokens pretty much all at once. Pretty fun card. We have Azor the Lawbringer. Probably one of the better ETB creatures. I don't think it's quite as flexible as some of the ones on this list, but it can definitely be a shutdown creature if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking to have fun, we have Dovescape and Fractured Identity. I think these are more chaotic spells, to be honest. They don't see consistent play, but there are a bunch of shenanigans that you can pull off. So, number 1. Now this is a little bit out of left field here, but Glenn, the Voice of Calm. Name a more talked about card in 2020 than Glenn. Holy cow, this guy can do everything. He has an attack trigger, he can draw you cards. That is just so insane, and you better believe he makes a wonderful commander. Nope, number 1 is Dovin's Veto. I know I had you in the first half there. Dovin's Veto. Probably one of the best blue-white cards ever. It's an uncounterable negate. Negate is already a pretty good card. Maybe not the best counter spell, obviously only countering non-creatures does kind of hold it back a little bit, but when you consider that whatever you're doing, if there's a response, Dovin's Veto, it's going to shut that down immediately, and it can't be responded to. The only exception would be, again, a Venser ability that just bounces this back to your hand. but those are just so rare that you don't have to worry about it that often. It sees play everywhere, whether it's casual blue-white or competitive blue-white. It might not be that creative of a card, but it just combines two things that were already pretty powerful, being uncounterable and countering spells. So an uncounterable counter spell. I wonder if that's going to be any good. Turns out it's really powerful, and it ruins days. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this top 10. Let me know what you think about Azorius. Void here signing off. You all have a wonderful day.